Now that's one waxy Joan of Arc. The House of Wax spins the tale of a sculptor thought to have been killed in a fire that was set in order to collect insurance money. But somehow he survives and resurfaces, opening a new wax museum called the House of Wax. But when his wax creations closely resemble the faces of recent missing people and murder victims, it has those around him questioning if these works of art are more than meets the wax. Recognizing the potential of 3D filmmaking, Warner Brothers partnered with Julian and Milton Ginsburg's Natural Vision 3D system, the same technology behind the groundbreaking Bwana Devil. They set out to reimagine their 1933 hit Mystery of the Wax Museum, itself adapted from Charles S. Belden's stage play The Waxworks. While House of Wax shifted away from the newspaper subplot and updated its setting to circa 1902, the echoes of its predecessor resonate in its plot and dialogue. The film ingeniously utilizes 3D to immerse audiences in thrilling sequences, from intense fights to lively can-can dance performances, and even a mesmerizing paddleball act. Among its standout moments was a jaw-dropping 3D effect where a shadowy figure appeared to leap from the theater audience onto the screen, leaving viewers spellbound. Taking the helm as director was the Hungarian-American visionary André de Tooth, whose illustrious career spanned over 4 decades in the realm of American cinema. De Tooth burst onto the scene in 1944, making an indelible mark with a signature blend of grit and authenticity. Unapologetically depicting violence with a raw and unfiltered intensity, renowned for his unflinching portrayals of rugged landscapes and gritty urban settings, De Tooth fearlessly delved into the darker facets of human nature, unapologetically depicting violence with a raw and unfiltered intensity that set him apart from his contemporaries. His uncompromising approach challenged the conventions of the era, sparking both admiration and controversy in equal measure. Interestingly, director André de Tooth's unique perspective added an unexpected twist to the production. Despite being visually impaired in one eye, De Tooth helmed the project with skill and precision. Vincent Price fondly recalled the irony, remarking, "It's one of the great Hollywood stories. When they wanted a director for a 3D film, they hired a man who couldn't see 3D at all." Despite this, De Tooth's directorial prowess shone through, focusing on crafting a gripping narrative and eliciting authentic performances from the cast. In fact, some modern critics argued that De Tooth's inability to perceive depth actually enhanced the film's quality. Freed from the constraints of gimmicky 3D tricks, he prioritized storytelling and character development, elevating House of Wax into a true cinematic gem. As the eerie tale unfolds, audiences are introduced to a cast of intriguing characters within the haunting walls of the House of Wax. Vincent Price commands the screen as Professor Henry Gerard, the enigmatic and disfigured sculptor who serves as the proprietor of the House of Wax. With a madness lurking beneath his genteel facade, Gerard's creations are as captivating as they are macabre. Opposing Gerard's dark artistry is Detective Lieutenant Tom Brennan, portrayed with steely determination by Frank Lovejoy. Tasked with unraveling the mystery behind the grisly murders tied to the House of Wax, Brennan navigates a labyrinth of secrets and deceit. Phyllis Kirk captivates as Sue Ellen, who finds herself drawn into Gerard's sinister world as the murders unfold, leading her on a perilous journey to uncover the truth behind Gerard's twisted talent. In a haunting twist of fate, Kirk also steps into the shoes of Marie Antoinette, brought to life through Gerard's long-lost wax figure. As the lines between reality and illusion blur, Sue must confront the chilling reality of Gerard's creations. Carolyn Jones delivers a haunting performance as Kathy Gray, Sue's ill-fated roommate, whose untimely demise sets the stage for the horrors to come. Jones's portrayal of Kathy is as captivating as it is tragic, her likeness immortalized in Gerard's wax figure of Joan of Arc. Paul Picarini shines as Scott Andrews, Sue's steadfast friend and a talented sculptor in his own right. With unwavering loyalty, Scott stands by Sue's side as they delve deeper into the mysteries surrounding the House of Wax. Roy Roberts adds depth to the narrative as Matthew Burke, Gerard's business partner, whose motives remain shrouded in darkness. Paul Cavanaugh demands the screen as Sidney Wallace, a wealthy art critic whose investment in the House of Wax sets the stage for a sinister showdown. Dabbs Greer as Sergeant Jim Shane, Tom's steadfast partner in the fight against crime. Together they must navigate the treacherous depths of Gerard's twisted world where nothing is as it seems. And last but not least, Charles Bronson, who mesmerizes as Igor, Gerard's silent assistant. With a haunting presence and a tragic past, Igor's role in Gerard's sinister schemes remains shrouded in mystery. House of Wax made its grand debut in New York City on April 10, 1953, before captivating audiences nationwide upon its general release on April 25th. This landmark cinematic masterpiece marked a significant milestone in the realm of 3D filmmaking. Being the first to boast stereophonic sound and vibrant color from a major American studio, its arrival heralded a new era of immersive cinema, setting the stage for a wave of groundbreaking visual experiences. Hot on the heels of its predecessor, Man in the Dark, from Columbia Pictures, which premiered just 2 days prior, House of Wax swiftly ascended to the summit of the box office charts, reigning supreme for an impressive 5 consecutive weeks. Its unprecedented success translated into a staggering $5.5 million from North American theaters alone, solidifying its status as one of the most lucrative films of 1953. In the years that followed, House of Wax experienced a resurgence with a 3D re-release in 1971, accompanied by an extensive marketing campaign utilizing Chris Condon's revolutionary single-strip stereo-vision 3D format. This reimagined presentation allowed audiences to once again immerse themselves in the spine-tingling world of Professor Gerard's wax creations. The 3D revival of the early 1980s helped breathe new life into the classic tale, prompting another major re-release that reignited audiences' fascination with the timeless thrills of House of Wax. Warner Brothers would later pay homage to the original with a loose remake in 2005, showcasing the enduring legacy and enduring appeal of the iconic film. In recognition for its enduring cultural impact and artistic significance, the Library of Congress bestowed upon House of Wax the prestigious honor of the preservation in the National Film Registry in 2014. This esteemed accolade served as a testament to the film's enduring legacy, ensuring that future generations will continue to be enthralled by its timeless tale of terror and suspense. Our tale opens up in a wax museum where we get a quick look at the array of human candles on display. We then pan to Professor Henry Gerard, played by the legendary Vincent Price, who we see working on his next masterpiece, when his business partner Matthew Burke comes in from the rain. Burke then complains to Gerard that the other wax museum in town was crawling with paying customers, due to its willingness to show pieces that are more shocking and macabre.
I don't care for that kind of patronage.
Then Burke tells Gerard how he's a simple businessman and he's already sunk $20,000 into this place and he needs a return on his investment soon. Gerard tells Burke that he's quite aware of his desire to get out from under the wax museum and that he's contacted a wealthy art critic named Sidney Wallace, who will be coming by to check out Gerard's art and possibly buy Burke's investment. We then get a knock at the door where art critic Sidney Wallace pays the museum a visit, and Gerard greets him with a full tour of his waxy creations. After Gerard gives Sidney the guided tour of his human Yankee candle factory, he tells him that his current business partner Burke isn't happy with his investment, and he would like out of the deal, to which Gerard asks Wallace if he would be interested in becoming his new business partner. Wallace, who is very interested, tells Gerard that he will be gone on a trip to Egypt and will be back within 3 months, and upon his return they can sit down and discuss the idea further. Gerard then begins telling one of his waxy girlfriends about his talk with Sidney Wallace.
Of course you'd say that, but I don't care about success. The world will acknowledge your beauty.
Is anyone else concerned what he's doing here after hours? So Burke comes back in after hearing Gerard and Wallace's conversation, to which Burke lets Gerard know he can't wait that long, he needs his money now.
It's my money and I need it now!
He tells Gerard how all the wax figures are insured for $25,000, and if they burn the place down, they can both split the money. But Gerard tells Burke he would rather die, and if Burke tries anything like that, he will kill him.
I won't let you do it, and I'll kill you if you try.
Burke, not concerned with Gerard's threats, starts lighting the wax figures on fire. The two begin exchanging blows, and Gerard is knocked unconscious. Burke then leaves the gas on and begins dousing the place with alcohol to help spread the fire. Gerard awakes to his precious human-sized fleshlights melting. He quickly tries to put out the flames, but Burke comes in and the two have an epic showdown in the blazing inferno. Burke is able to escape into the night where Gerard is trapped inside the building where it explodes, seemingly dying in the blast. We then cut to our good old arsonist pal Burke, who spins the tragic tale of his good friend Gerard, who died in a tragic fire to his new girlfriend, played by none other than Morticia Addams herself, Caroline Jones. After learning that Burke has just got a big payday from the insurance money, the little gold digger lights up.
You know what that means, baby?
No, man. What?
That little trip I was talking to you about?
Meanwhile, we see Burke head back to his office to collect his newly earned riches, where the horribly burned and disfigured Professor Gerard awaits to exact his revenge. After dispatching Burke, Gerard takes the money and stages Burke's death to look like a suicide. We then cut back to Burke's former soon-to-be gold-digging bride, Kathy, who seems to have moved on to her next meal ticket.
that sounds like fun.
Oh, yeah, he's a free spender, all right. A little bit older than I like him, but awfully distinguished looking.
We're then introduced to Kathy's friend Sue, where the two have a deep, meaningful conversation before Kathy heads out for the night with her new bohunk.
Now, when you get up there tonight, don't drink too much.
Oh, don't worry, I won't. He keeps trying to pour the liquor into me, but I always manage to keep my head.
Are you drunk?
No, I didn't have anything to drink.
You into this?
We learn that Sue is down on her luck and in need of a job. She tells Kathy she's off to see about a job later this evening, to which Kathy gives her a whole whopping 50 cents to go get herself some dinner.
Sue, all I've got is 50 cents, but you take it and buy yourself some dinner.
Later, we see Sue returning home, where she lets the landlord know that she didn't get the job.
You get the job? No. Why not? I had trouble with the man who runs the trouble.
But she informs the landlord that Kathy said she would let her borrow the money for rent. The landlord, fed up with the non-payments, tells her she can't sleep here tonight unless she gets her money right now.
It's my money and I need it now!
So Sue heads back to her apartment to wake up Kathy so she can get that rent money. But when she enters Kathy's room, she's hit with horror as she discovers Kathy's cold, dead body and a grotesque figure lurking in the shadows. Sue then flees out the window in terror, where the figure follows her in pursuit. Our disfigured man chases Sue through the streets until she's able to make her way to her friend Scott's place, where she tells him and his mother about the horrific murder of Kathy and the hideous man that tried to attack her.
I had to get away from him.
Back at the apartment building, Detective Brennan and Sergeant Shane investigate the crime. Later, they talk with the medical examiner, who informs them that Kathy was killed by strangulation and that most likely was also drugged. We later see Kathy's body being dropped off at the morgue with all the other stiffs. After the workers leave, we see that Gerard has been hiding in the room. He then takes a quick peek of Kathy's body before tying her up and lowering her out the window, where his two lackeys will wait to smuggle out the corpse. Back at the police station, we see Sue with Scott and his mother, as she tells Brennan and Shane everything she knows about Kathy's murder. Brennan tells her about several other strange deaths and disappearances. Meanwhile, we see art critic Sidney Wallace, who arrives at the address that was provided in a letter that was addressed from none other than Professor Henry Gerard. As Wallace is greeted at the door by Gerard's mute assistant Igor, played by Charles Bronson, Igor guides Wallace in, where he discovers that the professor has survived the tragedy. We notice his face is no longer disfigured, but the fire has left him crippled in a wheelchair and unable to sculpt.
It startled you, eh, seeing me here?
That's an understatement. I thought you were dead.
He tells Wallace that with the help of his pupils, he's going to reopen his wax exhibits, but this time he's going to give the people what they want. He then takes Wallace down to the basement to give him a first-hand look at how all the magic is done.
Yes, the bodies are constructed separately to exact specifications of reinforced plaster of Paris.
The professor then asks Wallace to help him fund his little house of wax, telling him he would need about $30,000 to get the place started. Wallace lets him know he'll consider.
That's why I've asked you to come here.
I'll think it over.
Gerard then shows Wallace the wax body of hanging victim Matthew Burke, who looks eerily too real.
But it can't be a death mask.
No, it's from memory.
We then jump ahead to the opening night at Professor Gerard's house of wax, where outside we see this joker who keeps trying to smack his balls in everybody's face.
Wow, that's a becoming hat you're wearing, madam.
Inside, Gerard guides his guests on a tour of his newly created works of wax art.
Why, he looks like a real man, doesn't he?
You'd be surprised.
It is a real man.
We see one of his new gruesome creations as a complete recreation of Burke's death right down to the exact detail.
He was found hanged in the elevator shaft of the building where he had his offices.
We then see Scott and Sue arrive at the premiere. The two run into Sidney Wallace, and we learn that not only is Scott friends with Wallace, but he's also a sculptor himself.
I want you to meet my good friend, Mr. Sidney Wallace, Miss Sue Ellen.
It's a pleasure, Miss Allen.
Then Sue is caught off guard when she sees that Gerard's sculpture of Joan of Arc is a dead ringer for the face of her now murdered friend Kathy. So she has a little freak-out moment, but our good old professor is able to calm her down as he tells her he used pictures from the newspaper to sculpt the face. Then Gerard asks Scott to come work for him on a few projects, and he tells Sue that she looks just like his Marie Antoinette that was destroyed in the tragic fire. And Sue agrees to come back and help him bring the creation back to life. We then see some more of this guy showing the ladies his talents for ball swallowing. Later that night, we see our murderous, disfigured killer stalking Sue, as he does a little peeping Tom act while watching her through the bedroom window. The killer makes his way into Sue's room as she falls asleep, and just when he's about to give her the business, she wakes up and lets out a scream of terror, scaring our creepy, deformed pervert off. We We then cut to the 14th Street Music Hall, where Scott and Sue are enjoying a few cold ones and watching a steamy dance number. Sue then tells Scott Kathy only had her right ear pierced, and so did the wax figure back at the museum, and that there was no way Gerard saw that just from looking at pictures in a newspaper. Convinced that Sue is overreacting, he tells her they're going to go down to talk to Detective Brennan and put this whole thing to rest.
I'm going to take you to Lieutenant Brennan's office tomorrow. I want you to tell him exactly what you've told me here now. He's a policeman, he knows.
We cut to the police station where Sue tells Detective Brennan about Kathy and the figure's right ear piercing, to which the detective tells her that Gerard did come to the station to look at pictures of Kathy.
Well, such a man came and asked to see police photographs of Kathy Gray.
You see, that's how it's done.
And that she shouldn't worry about it. The detective tells Sue he'll look into it. After Scott and Sue leave, Detective Brennan calls Lieutenant Shane and has him do a little digging on Gerard.
Hello, Jim. I want you to go to the City License Bureau and check up on a man named Henry Jarrett.
Back in the museum, Sue gives the Joan of Arc sculpture another look before she's approached by Gerard and his goons, Leroy and Igor, who show the sculpture of her head they've been working on. Gerard tells her the sculpture is not good enough and that he must have her likeness perfect and asks her to come see him again.
What I need for my Marie Antoinette is you. The real you. Nothing less will satisfy.
Oh, sexy girlfriend!
We then see Brennan and Shane having a look around the museum where they notice the sculpture of John Wilkes Booth looks just like the missing city attorney Wilbur Patterson.
Hey, he does at that with the brush off his lip. Hair's different, of course, but the features are something like Patterson's.
The two then are scolded by Gerard's pupil Leroy, who reminds them not to touch the exhibits. As Leroy leaves, Shane is sure he's seen Leroy before, but just can't place where.
Tom, you know me, I'm no good at names, but I don't forget faces. If I could take the muff off of that one, I might be able to place it.
Back at the station, Brennan and Shane call in Sidney Wallace to question him about Gerard's two pupils. After learning that Leroy is a bit of a drunkard, Shane remembers him, and that he's wanted for breaking parole. Brennan tells Shane to bring him on in. Back in the museum, we see Scott working away on a sculpture where Gerard lustfully watches over his pupil.
What I wouldn't give to have those fingers of yours.
After learning that Sue is coming to meet Scott at the museum, Gerard sends Scott to go run an errand for him before he heads home for the night. Back at the police station, Brennan and Shane begin questioning Leroy when they find a gold pocket watch that belonged to the missing attorney.
To Wilbur Patterson.
Leroy claims he found it. They then tell Leroy they're going to book him for murder.
Book him on suspicion of murder.
No, I found it, I tell you. I found it. I never even knew the man who owned it. I never even saw him.
Back in the museum, Sue, tired of waiting on Scott, makes her way into the museum to look for him, but finds no one inside, so she begins having a look around when we notice that Igor is stalking her in the shadows. After giving the museum a quick look around, Sue decides to have one more look at that Joan of Arc sculpture. This time she pulls back the wig, revealing Kathy's blonde hair underneath. Gerard appears in his wheelchair behind her, warning her that she shouldn't have done that.
You shouldn't have done that, my dear.
She then accuses Gerard of killing Kathy and covering her body in wax. Sue makes a run for it, and Gerard stands up from his wheelchair and gives chase. As Sue makes her way to the front door, it's blocked by Igor. Gerard then tells Sue that everything he's loved has been taken away.
Everything I ever loved has been taken away from me. Not you, my Marie Antoinette, for I will give you eternal life.
Sue, not falling for his sweet talk, gives him the hand, causing his mask to break off, revealing his horrific, disfigured face that lies beneath. Upon seeing Gerard's terrifying face, Sue passes out in shock. Then, downstairs in Gerard's twisted waxworks, we see he's preparing Sue to become his new Marie Antoinette. Back at the police station, Brennan and Shane are able to get Leroy to spill the beans, where we learn that since Gerard lost the use of his hand, he began killing people and encasing them in wax. Leroy also warns them that Sue is next and they have to stop him.
He'll do the same with Sue Allen if he ever gets his hands on her. You've got to stop him.
Back in the museum, Sue comes to naked and strapped down with Gerard standing over top. We then cut to Scott, who makes his way into the museum looking for Sue. Scott discovers Sue's purse on the floor and begins frantically searching for her. He then comes to the basement door leading to Gerard's workshop. Finding the door locked, Scott goes to break it down, but is stopped by Igor. The two then begin brawling on the exhibit floor. Man, this guy's got a real death wish. Back downstairs, we see the wax hot tub of death is coming to a rolling boil, and Gerard is preparing a little pharmaceutical cocktail for our distressed damsel. Back upstairs, poor Scott gets the living shit kicked out of him. After knocking him unconscious, Igor straps him to a guillotine that's being used in one of Gerard's exhibits. Back down in the workshop, we see the wax is just about ready as Gerard is about to give Sue a little prick from his syringe.
There is a pain beyond pain, an agony so intense it shocks the mind into instant oblivion.
We then cut outside to where the cops have just shown up and began making their way inside. We then cut to Igor, who's just about to give Scott a little off the top when the cops bust in and save the day. After freeing Scott, he tells them that Gerard has Sue down in the basement. So the cops bust into the cellar where they have a showdown with Gerard. You know, for a cripple, he impressively holds his own. After a brief brawl, Gerard is knocked off the balcony where he falls into the pool of bubbling wax. And it's at this point we realize that this whole movie was just the backstory for Jack Nicholson's Joker. With Gerard dead, Detective Brennan gives Sue a quick peek before covering her up with his jacket. We then cut back to the police station where Sue and Scott thank Brennan and Shane for all the help, and after they leave, Detective Brennan treats the audience to a little head. Alright, horror freaks, that does it for this episode. Drop me a line in the comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and until next time, stay stiff.